on, Dallas Cowboys fans, Cowboy Nation all around? Obviously, we do know this has been a very slow offseason for the Dallas Cowboys when it comes to free agency and just bringing in new guys that we feel like can help. But yesterday, the Dallas Cowboys did sign running back Royce Freeman to a one-year deal. This is a guy that's played for about 4 teams in the league, I believe. The Broncos, the Panthers, the Texans, and of last year, the LA Rams. About a career average about 3.8 yards, something like that. I believe he has a little bit over 470 carries. We're talking about a guy with a little bit more than 1,700 yards and 10 rushing touchdowns in his career. This is nothing more than just one of those signings to kind of help field and bolster the running back room. As of right now, obviously, we're looking at guys like Rico Dowdle, who's going to come back, Deuce Vaughn, who I'm going to see as something just more of a bit of a gadget player. I was kind of last year thinking maybe he can kind of find his footing and maybe find his role on the Dallas Cowboys. But last year, it did not seem to play out that way. And obviously, when you just start, the number one thing, especially when we're talking about a small guy like Deuce Vaughn, is going to be pass blocking. And we know many times the way to kind of counter what maybe a Deuce Vaughn could bring potentially. Teams, you're going to see opposing defenses a lot of times, they're going to attack him when it comes to these pass blocking situations. So a lot of times that found him not being able to find his way on the field anyway because the coach has seen him throughout the weeks during practice and everything. So this is a running back room that the Cowboys are going to have to continue to improve, and that's what I'm going to say going into the draft. But yesterday, again, like I said, Royce Freeman, running back Royce Freeman to the Dallas Cowboys on a one-year deal. Play for 4 teams. This is a 6th year. We're talking about 28 years old, and obviously that doesn't sound old or anything by regular life standards, but we're talking about in the NFL, 28. By the time you hit 28 to 30, that's when the league is looking to replace you, get you on out of there and find a new guy. And this is going to be a guy that I will say, if you watch him on film, it's nothing spectacular, but he's a very physical runner. That's the number one thing you're going to be able to notice fairly quickly. And to me, it depends on how exactly a guy like Mike McCarthy, Brian Schottenheimer, whatever these guys are going to kind of figure out with our run game, is going to depend on how exactly what the scheme is going to be looking like mixed in with a couple guys like that. Obviously, you're going to say you bring in Rico Dowdle back, Deuce Vaughn, like I said, and then you're looking at Royce Freeman. This is going to be a physical, I'm going to say personally, just with looking at what we have on the roster as of right now, it's going to be more of a physical running game. I'm going to believe the Cowboys want to employ a little bit more because we saw at certain points when our passing game, like Tony Pollard last year, let's be clear. Tony Pollard, he didn't have the season that I know he probably hoped for and expected himself to have, but it was a solid season. Let's be clear. It was a solid season. Tony Pollard now, of course, obviously with the Tennessee Titans, this is going to be a situation where I feel like our running game is probably going to be aimed towards being a little bit more physical to help out Dak Prescott, if that's going to be our future quarterback going forward, and help out Dak Prescott and see what exactly we're going to be able to do to kind of take some pressure off of him in that passing game. But I'm going to say, obviously, number one, you're looking at some of the other guys that are still free agents right now. Obviously, the former Dallas Cowboy, I'm going to say, I don't say great, but he had lots of great seasons here. We're talking about Ezekiel Elliott, who's also 28 years old. You're looking at guys like Kareem Hunt. You're looking at Jerick McKinnon, who I believe is about 31 years old. And I'm talking about these are guys, obviously, you're looking for just depth. You're not bringing them in to be your feature back or anything like that. But you do know in the NFL, it's a very physical game, and you're going to have a deep running back room, especially. So the Cowboys, again, you have a few guys still out there. Rashad Penny. There are just a few guys still out there. J.K. Dobbins. The list can go on. But the Cowboys felt Royce Freeman was the right fit for what we're looking to do going forward. And I'm going to say, obviously, this, to me, I'm going to say personally solidifies not bringing back a guy like Ezekiel Elliott, which you've heard has kind of been in talks over the last, I'm going to say the last couple months that it could have been a possibility maybe. I see that completely off the table now. And the Cowboys, I believe, are going to focus fully on the running back room in this upcoming draft. Before we get going, I want to sit here and talk about a little bit, just a few of these prospects in the running back room the Cowboys could, in the running back room, in this running back draft class, upcoming running back draft class, that the Cowboys could potentially look to maybe take over one of those roles. Of being more of your feature back. Let's take a look real quick. So here we go. According to ESPN.com, this is the running back draft class. It starts with running back Jonathan Brooks, a guy I'm very familiar with being a Texas Longhorns fan. And this is a guy that he ran so hard last year. And the number one thing you could tell was he was just waiting for his opportunity. Obviously, the last couple of years, you're talking about when you're sitting behind a guy also formerly a Texas Longhorn, Bijan Robinson, we know exactly the kind of player he is, drafted by the Atlanta Falcons, a top 7 pick. We're talking about also a guy like Rashawn Johnson, who's behind Bijan Robinson. So the Texas Longhorns have had a pretty much a loaded running back room for a few years now. So a guy like Jonathan Brooks, he was just waiting on his opportunity. And last year, he took full advantage of it. And 187 carries, over a little over 1,100 yards and 10 rushing touchdowns. This is only 11 games prior to tearing that ACL, obviously. Unfortunately, and to me, this is a guy I'm looking at personally. I think he is probably the best running back prospect in this draft. But some teams could be scared off just because of the ACL injury. You never know how these things heal. And also, we're talking about the running back position. So it's already a very physical position. You never know. Guys are diving at knees, things like that. So there could be a chance of re-injury. The fear of re-injury, some of these teams when it comes to drafting. But I feel like Jonathan Brooks, we're talking about maybe late second, early third round, something like that. That is the perfect position for a guy like this. And I'm looking at Jonathan Brooks as having the potential. If he's able to fully heal and recover from that ACL injury, this is a guy I can see completely being a starting NFL running back. And I'm talking about a 3-down back. Obviously, it's going to come down to the injuries. But I feel like Jonathan Brooks has the full potential. And if the Cowboys are going to be trying to kick some tires on a guy, obviously, because we're looking at the running back room now with a guy like Rico Dowdle, now Royce Freeman. As of right now, obviously, we know those 1-year deals can get very tricky once training camp comes around. You never know guys are going to stick or not. But throw in also Deuce Vaughn, just a gadget player that he could potentially be. You're looking at, you still need a guy to be able to come carry that full load. And I feel like Jonathan Brooks is definitely the guy that could potentially I guess you would take over that role. Look at Trey Benson, also another running back from Florida State. Spent 3 years in college. Started his first year in began his first year, in the University of Oregon, and the last 2 at Florida State. Obviously, last year, 156 carries, 905 yards, 14 touchdowns. This is a guy that just runs hard as well. We're talking about not easy to bring down at all. So if you're coming to tackle him, you better come down there with some thump because he will make you feel it himself. Also, a guy I'm kind of going to liken to, we're talking about more of the smaller backs, and I'm not calling him anything like a Deuce Vaughn because Blake Corum is a much more physical runner. He's not really, and I guess you want to say necessarily, focused on trying to outshift guys or anything like that, but he can make you miss in small spaces. That's where I feel Blake Corum is very strong, but he's a strong runner in his legs. You can tell. Even at size, we're talking about a guy that's like 5'8", 210, 215 pounds. Between that range, a guy that small, you're usually going to have something that you can rely on, and it's his physicality. He kind of has that same skill set that we're talking about of a Deuce Vaughn in small spaces, so he can get lost behind that line sometimes. But the difference between him and a guy like Deuce Vaughn is he's going to run through tackles, way more tackles. He's not really relying on being shifty as well. So Blake Corum, also a guy, I'd say maybe 4th round, because again, you are looking at certain sizes. But I'm going to say the Cowboys are now going to be in position to just pretty much be able to kind of do what they want. Obviously, we're going to say we have lots of needs. We can look at the offensive line. We could look up at I guess you want to say, improving that linebacker room, obviously, which we need to do that. We've had some injuries and some guys just leaving. I was looking at a guy like Leighton Vander Esch, now forced to retire, unfortunately, with that neck injury. Just the neck issues have continued to roll for him. The Cowboys could find themselves looking to bolster some of these other positions. But to me, if we're going to be a team, an offense, I'm going to say, a consistent offense, you're going to have your lead back. Everyone can say do it by committee, but at the end of the day, when these games get tough, the holes get a little smaller. You're going to need some of those guys that can maybe drag out an extra couple yards. And I feel like Blake Corum is perfect for that role. 258 carries, over 1,200 yards last season. Before then, the year before that, 247 carries, a little over 1,400 rushing yards and 18 touchdowns. But last year, 27 rushing touchdowns. 27 rushing touchdowns. Say that again. 27 rushing touchdowns. This is a guy that is not a stranger to the end zone. And if you allow Blake Corum to be able to get rolling and find his footing, he's one of those guys where you see like more of a momentum runner. It seems like I guess you want to say a guy you can kind of liken, if you remember Adrian Peterson, you call it the nickname all day, because it felt like as the game went on and the yards got tougher and tougher, he got stronger and stronger as a runner. And I feel like that's what Blake Corum is very good at as well. So we're going to have many options we can kind of take a look at. And I'm going to say, I've heard the name Marshawn Lloyd being thrown around a little bit. I'm not the biggest fan, but again, we're talking about middle round guys. But this is certain type of that can have a certain dynamic that you could add to your offense. But I will say a guy like Frank Gore Jr. This is also somebody. Obviously, we do know his father, Frank Gore. We're talking about one of the NFL all-time leading rushers. One of those guys, Frank Gore, a hard-nosed runner, a physical type player, and we do know when it comes down to making these tackles, that's what you're going to be counting on. And Frank Gore, we're talking about the University of Southern Mississippi, 4-year player. We're talking about 708 yards his rookie year. 801 rushing yards his sophomore year. And then his junior and senior years, we're talking about 1,300 yards, and last year, a little bit over 1,100 yards. Just a tough-nosed runner. We're talking about one of these situations. One thing, you're talking about the NFL pedigree. You can't really coach that. That's something you have or you don't. And we do know his father was a worker, so you can pretty much do nothing but count on, hopefully, that a guy like that can pretty much bring in the same thing. Last year, having a yardage per carry of 4.9. So these are some of the guys where you're looking at that now you're going to have to say, the Cowboys are not going to be able to be, I guess you want to say, ignore this position. Bucky Irving, a running back from the University of Oregon. Now, this is one of those guys where you're talking about speed, flash, shiftiness can make someone miss, and usually sometimes that can lead to taking it all the way to the house. So we do not have that advantage. I guess we don't have that aspect to this running game right now. Bucky Irving could be a guy that the Cowboys could take a very big look at. We're talking about 5'10", about 195 pounds, just very quick with his feet. And obviously, you're going to be looking at a guy that last year, I believe, ran for over 1,100 yards, 11 rushing touchdowns, had about 456 catches for 413 receiving yards, and also 2 more touchdown catches also. So you're looking at a guy that's a little bit more versatile. He's going to have a little bit more wiggle to his game. And also talking about 6.3 yards per carry. So like I said, if you're looking to group that in with a guy like Royce Freeman, you're looking to bring what you know is a physical type runner and a guy like Rico Dowdle. This could be something we take a look at. And just a couple more guys, just real quick. Jalen Wright, also from a running back from the University of Tennessee. Last year, 137 carries, 1,013 yards, 4 rushing touchdowns, then 137 carries. This is going to be a guy, we're talking about a 7.4 average, 5'11", 210. These are now some of those guys where you're going to have to say there are some weaknesses in their games, but at the same time, I don't think there's that number one guy where you're looking at and saying it's just a can't miss prospect, as if, like I said, we're talking about a guy like Bijan Robinson last year. I don't think we have that can't miss prospect, but I feel like there are lots of guys in this mix that can also be very, I guess you want to call them maybe diamonds in the rough, just kind of your sleeper picks. And real quick, Ray Davis, obviously that name, I've seen that name thrown around a lot. But two interesting prospects. The last two I'm going to wrap this up with. Two very interesting prospects. Look at a guy like Braylon Allen out of the University of Wisconsin. We know Wisconsin breeds great running backs usually. So in his first 2 years at Wisconsin, we're talking about a guy leaving after his third year. His first 2 years in Wisconsin, 186 carries his freshman year, 1,268 rushing yards, 12 touchdowns on the ground. His sophomore year, 230 carries, 1,242 rushing yards, 5.4 yards per carry, 11 touchdowns on the ground. And last year, 181 carries, 984 yards, 12 touchdowns on the ground, 5.4 yards per carry. And that freshman year was 6.8 yards per carry. So this is a guy that can make some things happen as well. And like I said, when you're looking to find out what exactly you have, you're going to pretty much look for these diamonds in the rough. And Dylan Johnson is my last one I'm wrapping this up with. Running back Dylan Johnson from the University of Washington. We obviously know this is a type, I guess you want to say this, that Washington offense was spearheaded obviously by a guy like Michael Penix Jr. and all that great trio of pass catchers that they had. But Dylan Johnson last year in that same offense, 233 carries, 1,195 yards, 6 touchdowns on the ground. This is a physical runner. This is one of those guys where I'm going to say it's going to be very interesting to see how exactly his game, I guess you want to say, blends into the NFL, because he started his first 3 years, at Mississippi State. And going to wrap up his college career at the University of Washington, 5.1 yards per carry. He is going to be a hard guy to bring down. And I can see the Cowboys throwing in that mix, a guy like that, Dylan Johnson. Like I said, One thing the Cowboys are looking for sure is that workhorse, that guy to pretty much take the, I guess, want to take the first load of carries starting out the game and kind of setting the tone for what our running game can be. And I feel like Dillon Johnson, if you're looking at the draft, of course, we have other positions that we need to take a look at. And let's not write off maybe us Cowboys throwing in another wide receiver or anything to this rotation in the upcoming season, some of the earlier rounds. So if you're looking at some of these prospects are off the board, do not be surprised you see a guy like Dillon Johnson still on the board, and the Cowboys are very interested in taking a look at. So, like I said, we'll see how exactly this is going to go. It's very exciting because we do have many routes that the Cowboys can take. But like I said, some of these running back prospects, the Cowboys are going to be in the mix for. And I'm very sure this is not something they're going to kind of want to do by simply just by saying by committee. You're going to have to find that guy that you feel like can completely take over that number one role. And I feel like this draft has many guys that the Cowboys could potentially grab a hold of. And that is what the 2024 NFL Draft running back room is looking like as of right now. So you guys go ahead, and if you want to take a look at that list yourself, the link will be down below in the description section. So I want you guys to go ahead and check that out. And also go ahead and follow iTalkGame247 on X, formerly known as Twitter, whichever way you want to look at it. Go ahead, because every Friday I will be looking to start adding in some of these comments, some of you guys' thoughts, questions, whatever you have, your own thoughts, and throw them into the videos and kind of answering them yourself and give you my own opinion on what you guys think, because again, your voices are very important to this channel, and that's exactly what I want this channel to be built off of, you guys' thoughts and you guys' opinions. So I appreciate you guys for all the support. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and share. You guys are amazing. And this NFL Draft, once again, it's coming up real soon. As you can see, the draft will be April 25th to April 27th. The Cowboys have a few picks in this draft, so there are many ways that they can take this thing. I want you guys to go ahead and stay as locked in as I will be. We will keep this thing going as the draft gets closer and closer. I appreciate you guys for all the support. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and share once again. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day.